Hey, NFL and Falcons fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen, Chris Mitherman behind the scenes producing. I'm Dave Holcomb. Got another exciting show for you today. Divisional playoffs in the NFL. We're to the Elite Eight, I guess you could say, which I think I've heard that term a little bit more this week than normal. The final eight, I think, is kind of like I think I saw that more on Twitter.
Yeah.
We're in the final eight.
It's an NCAA term, but I don't see why it doesn't apply.
Or I think it might have been Jim Nance said the Final Four in the AFC. Like when Buffalo advanced last week, he was like, Buffalo's in the Final Four of the AFC, so we're in the Final Four in two different conferences. So got the Elite Eight going on. But
I mean, they gave us Super Wild Card Weekend, so why not give us the Elite Eight or Final Four or whatever they want to call it?
And it should be some great matchups, right? Another great weekend of football on tap, and we're excited to have you guys here to preview that. And anything else you want to talk NFL, let us know. Send us a comment in the comments section wherever you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. And if you're watching on replay, tweet at us at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb.
Yep, always there to talk football with everybody.
Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, and we'll have some Prize Picks selections a little bit later on in the show for those divisional matchups. But if you're unfamiliar with Prize Picks, download the app, and when you do, sign up with our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So it's a great way to get started on the app. Yep. With if you want to put $20 down, you get $20 in addition to your 20 with the promo code ASU. And that supports our show as well as giving you some free money to play with on Prize Picks.
Yeah. And, if you're a little worried about just having eight games to choose from and a limited number of players, well, you can, you have the NBA, you have the NHL, you have plenty of options for player props on Prize Picks. So Australian National Basketball League, they do have some picks for the Australian National Basketball League this week. So if you are into Australian basketball, you might want to look at that.
Do you sit on Prize Picks and just look for the most obscure sports that you can put an entry on? I think that's what you do, Tom, in your spare time.
Yeah. I just want to see how obscure it can get. It's fun.
I think there's a COD abbreviation. Is that Call of Duty?
Yes, Call of Duty. You can bet on how many kills people get.
So those are like professional video gamers? Is that what you're betting on?
Yeah. Amazingly enough, you do have that, professional video gamers. It's wild. You can bet on MMA. You can bet on tennis, PGA. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff here. So, how many aces does a player going to get? How many returns or unforced errors, I guess. Although, how can you have an unforced error? If you have an error, it's an error, whether it's forced or unforced. But, hey, that's just me. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So in addition to the great divisional matchups we have a little bit of history on the line too for the NFL and the city of Atlanta, because Atlanta is going to be the host city if there is a neutral site AFC Championship game. And in order for that to happen, which I think people around here, Tom, are excited about the possibility of not only a playoff game in Atlanta, which hasn't happened in a while,
right.
Fortunately, but, something from the other conference and something that probably will never happen again in Atlanta, hosting an AFC playoff game, an AFC championship. And, of course, that will only happen if both Kansas City and Buffalo win their games this weekend.
Yeah, and it should be interesting, should be fun. I know Atlanta should be looking forward to it because it will be a great game if it comes to that. And, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's a great place to have it. Of course, I think Soldier Field would have been a good host and, get a little cold weather going for these guys because hey, it's just too temperature controlled in a dome stadium. You want that outdoor air, you want that cold, you want that those flurries blowing in on you, and both teams will feel at home that way.
Right. That's
So,
what I was going to say.
why not?
It's not like it's like the Colts or something where
Yeah.
one team was a dome team and one team was Buffalo. Both these teams are cold weather places, cold weather teams. So it is kind of funny that really, I think the only places they were considering were domes.
Yeah, Indianapolis and Atlanta. Yeah,
yeah. Because
Indianapolis turned it down. They had some other activities going on that weekend, but it's good for Atlanta. It's going to bring a lot of people into town, fill the hotels, fill the restaurants. It's going to be a big thing.
Yeah. So I think if you're just a casual NFL fan in Atlanta, you want that game here to bring all those things that you're talking about, and so you're this weekend you're Chiefs and Bills fans.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? So it's going to be an interesting weekend. Just the games will be interesting, but yeah, the outcome of those games will play a big part in. It's going to be interesting. It's uncharted territory for the NFL because you're used to having your home fans being able to root for you, and it's not a thing now. The problem I see, and some of the things I've been seeing on social media this last week, is that behind the scenes, the NFL is trying to make a decision on whether they want to make all championship games at neutral site stadiums. And I don't agree with that. I don't like it, and I'm not for it. But apparently the NFL is very curious about how this will work if it comes to pass this weekend.
Yeah, that was our first comment from Gary. He asks about that, Tom. What is your take on neutral site playoff games? Has the NFL opened itself up to making more money? I haven't read anything yet about what the ticket prices will be. That's just because I haven't Google searched it. There's probably news on that already, what a ticket would cost for the AFC Championship in Atlanta next weekend. But I've heard from some fans that it's going to be really expensive.
And, sure.
And there's going to be like a part of it divided up to Bills fans, part of the tickets to Bills people, part of it to Chiefs people, and then the general public. Kind of like, I think that's how the Super Bowl works.
Yeah.
So kind of bringing up what you said, I mean, is the NFL? Do you think they would seriously consider this a format going forward?
All comes down to money, Dave. If it makes money, if that weekend makes money in Atlanta, if they bring in enough revenue, and you not only figure the fans of each side, but you got tickets going to the sponsors. So it is going to be like a Super Bowl audience. And if there's money for it, don't be surprised if the NFL takes that money, even though you're losing the atmosphere of a home game, deciding who goes to the Super Bowl, which I think is the way it should be. Yeah. But, the NFL will do what fills their pockets.
Which I get that, and I totally agree. But it is sad that this is a consideration because you play for a lot of reasons. I think the atmosphere that you're talking about. We've heard from players in recent years that the Super Bowl is so corporate. It's so bland, the atmosphere. We especially heard that at SoFi Stadium last year, where the tickets were probably astronomically high, not only because it's LA, but it was a brand new stadium that cost a lot of money. And I guess that's where most Super Bowls are at this point. But the rich people go to the Super Bowls, not the true fans necessarily.
Right.
So if you turn the championship game into that as well, it takes something away from the championship games.
Yep.
That's kind of what makes Championship Sunday unique. Is it's still at the home stadiums, and you have the atmosphere, you have the cold weather, you have the rivalries that you don't necessarily get in the Super Bowl all the time either. And so you're taking one of those aspects away that makes Championship Sunday my favorite sports day of the year.
Yeah, and this is what the teams play for.
That was going to be my other point
yeah,
too. Yeah.
This is what the teams play for. Get that number one seed. And it's not just the number one seed for the bye. It's a number one seed that says you are all coming to our place. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, you got to go through us.
Right.
And you lose that if you take the AFC and NFC championship games on the road, onto a neutral site. And I think it takes a lot out of it. I know people will watch it. We were talking about this, when the NFL set up their Week 18 schedule. People will watch. We know that. It's the NFL always has the top-rated broadcasts. You look at TV ratings for a particular week, and the NFL is always up there. People are going to watch it. However, it takes away from the game because you're taking it away from the fans. And you've almost priced the fans out of your home stadiums as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let them have something when their team is that good, when their team is good enough to host these games. When your team has played well enough all year over a 17-game season to host these games.
Yeah.
They've earned this.
Yeah. And I would think cities like Chicago, Pittsburgh, who was another city that wanted to be in contention for this championship game but wasn't. The cold weather places that are already ruled out of Super Bowls, basically. Yeah. Now they would be ruled out of hosting a championship game more than likely because of if you're going to have it at a neutral site place, they're probably going to have it at a dome or warm weather place,
right? Which
would really be a shame for Lambeau Field, Soldier Field, whatever it's called in Pittsburgh now, Heinz Field, Lincoln Financial in Philadelphia. It's not CenturyLink anymore. Lumen Field in Seattle. These are some great places that I've seen games, and those places wouldn't have championship games anymore.
Nope, completely unfair to those cities. Even if that team has earned the top seed in their conference, they're not going to host their championship game. The fans are not going to get a chance to go out there and raise the roof for the championship game.
Yeah.
And that's just absurd. And, some things trump money. And I'm sorry that, the NFL doesn't tend to think that way. It always tends to think about where the money is. But you're really taking away a lot from fans in cold weather cities, the fact that they will never host a championship game ever, even if their team is one of the participants.
Sometimes less is more, building up goodwill with your fans and a fan base, especially all those cold weather cities that we said that have diehard fans that want to see a home championship game in the near future, or could this year. Philadelphia could be a host next week.
And they could be.
Why would you want to anger those fans with a neutral site game? Yeah, it might, a neutral site championship game. It might result in a better bottom line initially, but after a generation or whatever of, losing that tradition of what we love on Championship Sunday, how many fans might you lose because of that? Or not gain because there's not a home championship game in one of these places we're talking about down the road.
Well, yeah, and you spend the last month of the season, or you pick out games during the season where you say this is going to have a bearing on the top seed in the conference. Here are two top teams that are going to have a bearing on the final standings.
Yeah.
So you look at that, and it kind of takes some of the anticipation out of a
regular season matchup.
Yeah, out of the regular season, out of a big matchup during the regular season.
That's true. That's really true. Because we don't talk about, when trying to think of an example this year, like the Chiefs didn't play the Eagles this year, but if they had, or, Bills play the Eagles, we didn't talk about, well, who's going to have home field advantage in the Super Bowl? This matchup's going to determine that. Of course, you can't have home field advantage in the Super Bowl. So that's not a thing. It would be the same if the championship games go to a neutral site. That wouldn't be a conversation. And you're right, that is such a big thing that they play up when even back in when did they meet? In October when Kansas City played Buffalo. Conversation already was about, well, this game is for home field advantage.
Right. Exactly. And you're going to lose again, look at it as a money thing. If the NFL really digs down into it, you're losing the marketing for an October game because all of a sudden it's not for home field advantage.
Yeah.
And you're maybe losing some of the extra audience you might get for that game because it's an elite game. So don't take the bottom line for a championship game at a neutral site and say, you can't take that bottom line because you got to take a lot of other bottom lines into the experience too. Games that are played early in the year that they like to hype up. You can't hype these games up as much anymore. Well, you hype it up as a battle for first seed and for the week 1 bye, but that's all you get.
Well, until a 7 seed beats a 2 seed, it's not really going to mean much. Now 7 seeds are what, 0-7 in the playoffs now, all time. That's a whole another discussion of playoff expansion, again done for money, but really not necessary because there is a big gap between that number 7 seed and the number 2 seed.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Not as big of a gap between 3 and 6 when they expanded, to 6 teams. Maybe initially there wasn't that upset. I don't know. I wasn't. I think that expansion happened in like 1990. I wasn't following yet, but it seems like pretty regularly a 6 team beats a 3 in the NFL playoffs.
Sure.
And it's not a huge sample, but 7 doesn't beat 2 a whole lot. So if you make the championship game a neutral site, there's not a huge difference between 1 and 2.
No. Because if you look at it, you got 2 7 seeds in. You basically got 2 teams that are around the middle of the league in record, around the middle of the league in accomplishment. They're 13, 14, 15th best teams in the league. No, they're not going to beat the elite. You're letting them in just kind of be cannon fodder for your expanded playoffs.
You've put that team in so that you have more exciting playoff implications in late December and now early January.
Yeah.
I mean, the AFC playoff picture would have been set in week 16 if not for the 7th seed. There were 6 teams clinched with 2 weeks to go, but there was that last spot left that the Jets had it, then the Patriots had it, and the Dolphins had it and barely held on by a field goal, almost went to Pittsburgh. That excitement the last 2 weeks doesn't happen without the
no, it doesn't. But it doesn't make the playoffs better either.
Right. No, I agree.
Again, it does sell late season games that you normally wouldn't be able to sell.
Yeah. But again, circling back to the neutral site and the difference between 1 and 2, there wouldn't be a huge difference. And you're agreeing with me.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Good afternoon, Tony. He's joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Great to see you, Tony.
I would love to hear if anybody's thinking about going to the game or trying to get tickets for the game next week. Of course, we're assuming the game is going to be in Atlanta. That won't happen unless the Chiefs and Bills both win. And I think anybody thinking about going to the game, of course, is, as I said at the top of the show, rooting for those 2 teams so that the game is here in Atlanta. And I guess maybe if you're against this neutral site idea for the future, are you rooting for the Bengals tomorrow? Are you rooting for a Jaguars upset so you don't even have the possibility of the NFL looking at that bottom line and saying the neutral site is beneficial?
What do you think, Zozo? Are you rooting for the kitty cat teams? Huh? Are you rooting for the Jaguars and the Bengals because they're cats?
That's usually what our animals
I think she's thinking about it. She doesn't know.
She doesn't know. Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't know. So.
She wasn't a huge fan of Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 picks in the first quarter last.
But he came back. He threw 4
He did.
touchdowns in the second half.
That's
I
true.
mean,
That's true.
was that a Chargers experience or what?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean,
that.
you change head coaches, change quarterbacks, and some franchises just stay the same.
Yeah.
Stay. Yeah, that Charger team blowing that 27-point lead was quite something.
Oh, it just completely blew my mind last weekend as I watched that happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, the problem is over the course of their franchise history, it seems to be like such a Chargers thing to do.
That's what I'm saying.
And
yeah.
it's amazing. You go back to Marty Schottenheimer and some of those earlier, Chargers teams, and they always seem to kind of fail at the end. They never quite get to the finish line. So it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, and we were making fun of Brandon Staley last week with each other on Twitter, and who was our follower, the commenter last week, that he was very adamant that the Chargers were going to win, and he was looking great for a while.
Yeah, looking fantastic.
I forget who that was. If you're watching, let us know. I mean, maybe you don't want to. You don't want to let us know because we're calling you out for being wrong. But you were looking good for, I don't know, 3 quarters. You should have been.
Quarters
should have been right.
Yeah, should have been. But man, did they take the Jaguars just came out of the locker room in the second half, and just completely different attitude, and definitely could tell that was not an Urban Meyer team.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So how good of a chance do you think the Jaguars have against the Chiefs this weekend?
I think they'll play a tough game. They played a tough game earlier in the year, 27-17, but I think the Jaguars have kind of turned their season around since then. I think they'll play a closer game. I think the Chiefs are better. I mean, there's no reason why the Chiefs shouldn't win. Let me check what we got on the spread for that game now. Let's see. Divisional round schedule. Chiefs are favored by 8.5, and they've been favored by 8.5 for most of the week. So, but I think, the Chiefs have led the league in points per play, points per drive, net passing yards per attempt. And normally net passing yards per attempt makes a big difference when it comes to your success and able to win a game. But, the Jaguars are 10th in net passing yards per attempt. They've made a comeback in quite a few statistical categories. This is a team that's going to play a tough. I don't know if Kansas City is going to cover that 8.5. It's going to be a tough game, but I do think Kansas City is going to win it. Just because they have more experience at this kind of game than Jacksonville does. Jacksonville's a growing team. This is a team on the rise.
Yeah, I agree. And, they're in a perfect division to be, kind of a middling team at this point, but a team that has an upward trajectory going forward. There's really no one. I'm not even going to count Tennessee as a challenger in that division right now. Tennessee really fell apart and is going to have a new GM next year, new offensive coordinator as well. So they have a lot of questions. And then, of course, the Colts and Texans are at the top of the draft board. So the Jaguars are looking pretty – their future is looking pretty good, even if they don't make it past the Chiefs this weekend.
But not on top of the Bears. Bears are number 1. Oh.
Yes, they're number one in something.
Oh God, that's just that just tears me up. But I know a lot of Bears fans are excited. I'm not. I don't like
picking first.
Yeah.
You're not excited about picking first? I feel
No,
like you should be excited.
I think you get as good a player third or fourth as you do picking first. You're going to get, if you don't get a Pro Bowler, you got to take a second look at your scouting staff, because your scouts are not performing if you can't pick up a Pro Bowl player out of the third or fourth spot. So,
well, they might still pick third or fourth. They might trade back.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good move for them.
I think they need so many players. I think it'd be a good thing. I think they need to stock up on draft picks.
Yeah.
I think they need to make some depth on this roster this year. So, yeah, I would not argue them if they move back. I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Bowling ball, yes. The Bears are moving to Arlington. They're moving to Arlington Heights. That will happen. They are not looking at an upgraded Soldier Field to be their home.
Is that official news that they're moving?
No, it's not official news, but everything points to it. Everything they talk about, everything they point to, Arlington Heights is number one in their mind. They are going to move to the old racetrack location. So count on it.
Okay. I got to get to Soldier Field. Never been there before it closes up.
Yes, you do. I don't know. It used to be a World War I memorial.
Yeah.
Until they put the toilet bowl down inside of it. Then it was dememorialized or whatever. Its memorial status, its national landmark status was taken away. And so whatever you do to it now, it really doesn't matter. And the city of Chicago does have some nice plans for what they say they are willing to do with Soldier Field. It's just the Bears are not looking. They got the option for the land out in Arlington Heights, and I think they're going to follow through with it.
Are they going to build a dome so they can host neutral site championships?
That's the talk. Is they are building a dome. They are going to have the field turf, not regular turf. They're going to put the field turf in, and that's pretty much it. That's what they're talking about.
I think we disagree on this, but inside games in Chicago, that just does not seem right.
No, it doesn't. I don't like it either, even though I've sat in Soldier Field on some very, very cold days. That wind comes off the lake, and you're really feeling it. 1985 divisional round against the New York Giants, the temperature rose to 8 degrees, and I was sitting there in the stands, freezing my butt off, but enjoying the hell out of it.
It was 20-0 was the final score?
Yeah, 20-0 was the final score. The Sean Landeta whiff punt took place right in front of me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't remember the name of the punter, but I remember.
Sean Landeta. Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Knew the Giants punter whiffed in the end zone, right? He just whiffed.
Whiffed in the end zone. Sean Gale picked it up, brought it in, and that was it. Yeah, the wind was blowing so hard off the lake that it blew the ball sideways, and he missed.
Incredible. Yeah. So, I mean, that probably will never happen again anywhere, but definitely won't happen with the air conditioning in a dome.
No, absolutely not. You're also never going to get a Fog Bowl game again. Now, I was at the Fog Bowl.
Oh, yeah?
Up in the upper northeast corner of the stadium. And by halftime, you could see the fog starting to roll in over the field. By the time the team started the second half, we could only see one corner of the end zone. So that was it. We could not see anything else.
Yeah.
Could barely see the scoreboard. I'd see Mike Quick and Mike Richardson would come out of the fog into the corner of the end zone, then go trotting back into the fog. And then 30 seconds later, Mike Quick and Mike Richardson would come out of the fog into the end zone and then go trotting back into the fog. That's kind of what the game became for us.
Yeah, that's great. Tony makes a great point that I was going to bring up as well. You know, what we're talking about now for Chicago is what was said about Minnesota and Detroit once upon a time, especially Minnesota. When did Detroit play outside?
They were in Tiger Stadium for a while.
Okay.
So they were a lot of football teams played in baseball stadiums.
Yeah.
So the Lions did play in Tiger Stadium before they moved indoors. The Vikings, Bud Grant made it a point of honor.
Yeah.
The Vikings were a cold weather team. They never wore sleeves out in the cold weather. Bud Grant would wear a polo shirt out in the cold weather. It looked like it never got to him. The guy never wore a coat. And it was just amazing. And that was kind of considered a bigger sin than the Lions moving indoors, is the Vikings moving indoors, because of the pride that they took since the founding of their franchise in 1960, the pride that they took in being able to play in the cold weather when other teams couldn't do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to really tell you that the Lions ever played outside, because it's just not mentioned. If you watch old NFL films footage, maybe it's just because the Lions really aren't on old NFL films footage because they weren't a great franchise in the 70s like the Vikings were. You can see Vikings highlights from playoff games, and they're outside at home, and I've heard stories about what you're talking about with Bud Grant.
The frost is coming out of their noses, mouths, the frost from their breath, and he's just standing there, coaching his team, and it was amazing. You will never see another coach like Bud Grant, believe me.
Yeah.
So,
well, sticking with the AFC, but moving to tomorrow's matchup, I think this might be the most. I think it is the most interesting matchup of the weekend. Although San Francisco Dallas kind of gives me hesitation that maybe that one could be the most interesting game as well. But obviously, you have this rematch from the Monday night game from a few weeks ago that we didn't get to see finished. But these two teams are both legit Super Bowl contenders.
Yes, they are.
And I don't, no disrespect to the Jaguars and the Giants, is not Giants Eagles tomorrow, but I think that's the first matchup of the playoffs where it's really two teams that I really believe can win the Super Bowl. Is this Bills and Bengals matchup? But they both have their obvious weaknesses too, which makes it intriguing. You saw Josh Allen again last week doing too much hero ball. Is what it's being coined now.
You go up a 17-0, and all of a sudden he gives up 11 points off turnovers, 2 interceptions.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's really, if you're a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, if you're a championship quarterback, you just don't do those kind of things. I like your term for it, Dave. Hero ball. That's what he's trying to do. Is he's trying to, I got a 17-0 lead. I'm going to try and bury, the other team, bury my opponent, and all of a sudden, his opponent's back in the game. You have to watch out for that. You can't let that happen.
Yeah, and you can make up for those mistakes against the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson.
Right.
You're not going to do it against Joe Burrow.
Nope.
You can't make those errors.
Not a bit.
And but Cincinnati has their obvious flaws going into this weekend too. We saw it last year, but they were able to overcome their offensive line problems. Now their offensive line has been a lot better in the second half of the season, but guard Alex Kappa and tackle Jonah Williams are both out for this game.
Yeah.
So how
they had already lost their right tackle. So, you're coming in with your second string at 3 of your most important positions. That's going to be a rough one for the Bengals. And that's why I kind of think I would take the Bills in that game. If we're looking at Nostradamus real quick, the fact that the Bengals don't have those offensive linemen, and the Bills are very good on defense, and people just don't seem to really give them a lot of credit for their defensive play.
Yeah.
Bills are very good on defense. And I think that's going to make it very rough for Joe Mixon to move the ball on the ground. It's going to force Burrow to put the ball in the air. And it's going to force Burrow to make some quick decisions with a lot of players around him. So it's going to be rough.
Yeah, and how many sacks did the Titans get last year in that divisional matchup? Was it 10? And Cincinnati still won?
Yes, I think it was 11.
11?
11, yeah. It was amazing. The Titans were all over Joe Burrow. And yeah, Burrow still won. It was an amazing game. But again, the Bengals aren't playing the Titans. They're playing the Bills.
Right.
You are playing a completely different team as far as quality.
But the reason why the Bengals won that game was because of 3 interceptions from Ryan Tannehill. And that's what I'm talking about with Josh Allen on the other side. He's got to take care of the ball. Even if that means fewer explosive plays downfield.
Right.
Or fewer long runs from him. Run out of bounds, slide. Don't put the ball in harm's way. Easier said than done. I get it. But really, I think this is very important for them in the next 3 games. If they're going to win the Super Bowl and they have a roster to do it, Josh Allen's got to be under control. It can't be,
right.
He was out of control last week. He was out of control with not taking careless with the ball. He can't be careless with the ball if they're going to win the Super Bowl.
And take advantage of Devin Singletary. It's amazing. They don't make use of Devin Singletary nearly as much as I would like to see.
Yeah, and they've got James Cook too. I mean, they have a good running back tandem.
You actually have a good running back tandem that you can use to wind clock and keep the Bengals off the field. And why the Bills? I know the whole thing goes through Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's been the key to that offense ever since he's emerged as a top quarterback, which I think was just last season. But still, Allen has to get it into his head that he doesn't have to do it all. Championship quarterbacks know they don't have to do it all. They know who they got on their side. They know who their weapons are when they need them. And I think that's where Josh Allen can make his next big step. It's not physically, it's mentally. So let's see what he does tomorrow. It's going to be a special atmosphere, too, at this Bengals game tomorrow.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's not in Cincinnati. It's in Buffalo, like, the last time. But it's going to be a special atmosphere between these two teams. But I think once they get into the game, it's going to be tough. They're going to play hard against each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Bills, and that was the Bills' problem coming down the stretch, week 18, is you got to take care of that football. Don't get careless with it. Yeah, be everything you are as a quarterback, and don't try and get too fancy. You're not Patrick Mahomes, but you're very good. You're one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So, you're in that Patrick Mahomes conversation. Mahomes can get away with those little flips and sidearms and crazy throws, and he always seems to get away with those things. But, Josh Allen, just be Josh Allen. Do what you do best. You're one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Take care of the ball.
Well, I would say be a little less Josh Allen. Be a little less of what you normally are.
Yeah.
And play within yourself. That's
right.
That would be my message to him. But let's switch over to the NFC, and let's not gloss over the Saturday night matchup between the Giants and Eagles. I do think the Eagles are going to win this game. I think they might win by more than a touchdown, Tom, but it's a rivalry matchup. Both these cities don't like each other. They don't like each other in pretty much every sport there is. They're rivals. So
yes,
this is an exciting matchup as well.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to this game. I had a friend tweet me just before the show saying that Brian Daboll might be the best coach, still on the field in this in these playoffs. And I don't know if I would go that far, but he's done a hell of a job with this Giants team. This is a battling team. And it's all attitude. It's all attitude. They don't have the talent that you would still like to see out of a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they're quite as talented yet, but it's a good team. This is a team that just battles, never gives up. You cannot let up against them. So, and Minnesota found that out last week.
Yeah.
You've got to take them seriously. So
Daniel Jones was terrific last week.
Yes, he was.
It had to have been the best game of his career. And he was doing everything Josh Allen does. He looked like Josh Allen, running the ball, throwing the ball, and he didn't have the giveaways that have been very common with Daniel Jones over the early part of his career. And he was just terrific. So another performance like that from him and the Eagles, I probably shouldn't just assume they're going to win by a touchdown, because I don't know if Jones will play that well again. But if he does, the Giants are a really tough team.
Jones has really benefited, probably been the most benefited by having Brian Daboll as his coach. I think Daboll has taught him a lot about what being a quarterback is and how to make use of your strengths. Yeah, Jones doesn't have the arm that Daboll, had with Allen in Buffalo, but Jones has his own set of talents, and Daboll's kind of calling plays and running the offense through him, through those talents. And that's why Brian Daboll is such a smart coach. It's really something to watch that Giants team in action, because, they play tough. They're not particularly going to be the strongest team. I expect them to go out tomorrow. I expect this to be within a touchdown tomorrow, though. I'm taking the Giants
in the spread
plus the points, because I think they can keep this game close. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have an impact. And it's just what the Giants do. They play you close. They don't let you get away from them. Now, the Eagles did beat them badly earlier in the season. The Giants let them get out to a big lead and got beaten by, I think it was 3 scores. But it's not going to happen this week. The Giants have been looking at this. I know they've watched plenty of film of that game. And, week 18, neither team were interested. Jones didn't even play. But I think they're going to come out prepared. They may not win, but it's going to be a hell of a game tonight. So I think people should look forward to that game. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
And the final matchup of the weekend, Cowboys and 49ers. Of course, a lot of history there between those two franchises.
Yeah.
Last week or last year in the postseason, and the 49ers upset Dallas on the road. This matchup in Santa Clara in California. And do I dare say, I think the big storyline for San Francisco is, of course, the rookie quarterback, how he continues to play. Looked a little nervous early on against Seattle, missed some throws last week, but was on fire, I think, in the second half. And
yes, he was.
40-plus points. So it's hard to complain about that. And for Dallas, I think Prescott, of course, maybe the pressure goes back on him if they don't win this game. But he played so well Monday night, completely outshined Tom Brady. I think there's some pressure off of him, but a lot of pressure on Brett Maher, the kicker for Dallas, who missed 4 straight extra points, 3 of them to begin that Monday night matchup against Tampa Bay.
Yeah. The pressure is on Prescott anyway, because the fact, and it shouldn't be, because, they were in the same situation under Romo, not being able to get past the divisional round.
Yeah.
Finding a way to lose. And that's how the Cowboys have been with Jerry Smith as the owner, Jerry Jones as their owner, de facto general manager. Well, he has been. He's been
Yes.
running that
Oh,
team.
you're right. You're right.
Ever since Jimmy Johnson left, that team has struggled. Jimmy Johnson had that team playing, winning a couple Super Bowls. Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson's team. And ever since then, they haven't been able to get out of the early rounds because they seem to fall short. Things seem to happen. The talent isn't quite as good. They make mistakes. But Mike McCarthy's been there before. He knows how to win these kind of games. He won a Super Bowl with the Packers. It's going to be tough because I don't have a lot of belief in third-string quarterbacks being able to take a team to the Super Bowl or being able to take a team deep into the playoffs. Yeah. This Cowboys team plays really good defense. You can say Brock Purdy really hasn't played a defense like Dallas has yet since he's been starting. It's going to be interesting to see if he can raise his game because the game he played last week is not going to get it done this week. So I need to see what he can do against the Cowboys, against the legit defense that can rush the quarterback. And he's going to have Michael Parsons chasing him all evening. So going to be a tough one on him. But can he do something about it? Can he overcome it? Can he get past the opening nerves? He's going to have the opening nerves again.
He will, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, a big storyline. That team is Super Bowl worthy at every other position.
Yes.
But of course, quarterback is the most important position. So
I was about to say, a Super Bowl team in every sense of the word, except for the most important position in football.
Right.
So,
right. But he's playing really well. Hasn't lost the game yet. So, but will that continue? I guess is the big question. Will Kyle Shanahan continue to put him in situations where he can have success? That's really the question.
Yeah, I think if anybody knows how to do that with a quarterback, it's Kyle Shanahan. As far as putting a quarterback in a position to have success. But you still got to do it out on the field. And again, they're facing a defense that Purdy has not faced yet this year. All right, he has not faced a real quality defense all season. This is a quality defense. All right, this is a tough defense. Again, Dallas's defense always gets overshadowed by the controversy about having Zach as quarterback or Dak Prescott as quarterback. Their defense is a big reason why they are in this position right now. And I think they're capable of winning this game.
I think so too. I don't think I'm picking them, but I don't go by my picks though. That's all I have to say about my picks. Let's get to some of the picks that our viewers are making. Tony says he likes Cincinnati and San Francisco tomorrow.
Okay.
Wallace makes a comment about the Giants and their DC, Wink Martindale. Wanted to give him a shout out in addition to Brian Dable. You talked about Brian Dable.
Wink Martindale has done a hell of a job with that team, yes.
Brian likes Dallas. If they get a lead, he thinks they can really coast to a victory.
I agree with Brian there.
I thought we had one other prediction. Another one from Wallace. He likes the Bengals as well. Doesn't like that Buffalo is one-dimensional on offense.
Well, Buffalo is one-dimensional on offense by choice. They can run the ball if they want to. And that's the problem. Yeah, it is the want to. They have such good receivers that I think Allen kind of gets ahead of himself a little bit and misses the fact that he has such good receivers, but he does have runners too. And that's something that they have to be wary of. I think, they can run the ball as well as anybody if they decide to. I would like to see them decide to run more tomorrow against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been calling for that all season. At least I have been for a lot of other teams. I'm an old school fan. I want to see the running game, and it helps your offense in a lot of cases. And you can't just be a passing team to win the Super Bowl. That's what I think. But.
And see, last year I was saying the same thing. I thought Buffalo was throwing the ball too much last year, and I didn't think they were giving Singletary enough of a chance to do some work on the ground last year. And to me, if you can't run the ball and run clock with a lead, there's always the option that the other team is going to get back in the game on you. It's important to be able to, if you've got a one score or 10-point lead, your ability to run the ball is going to really play well into your ability to win, because you're going to be able to run clock. You're going to start making the other team nervous about what are we going to still be able to do if we get the ball back in our hands. And your running game is the reason why they're not getting the ball back in their hands and why the clock keeps winding. And that's what I want to see out of Buffalo, because I think that was missing from that team last year.
Bowling Ball brings up a good point about 49ers being a former NFC West foe of the Falcons.
Yes, so they did.
Began the show talking about what Atlanta fans might be rooting for, Buffalo and Kansas City, if we want the neutral site championship game, might be rooting for Dallas as well if you want to knock out that old NFC West foe that Atlanta used to play twice a year.
Yeah.
Brian,
it's funny because those old divisional rivalries, when we had the three divisions, everybody forgets the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in the Bears division. They were in the NFC Central. So we saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice a year. It's interesting how the rivalries have changed over the years with the way that the divisions changed when they last did their reorganization.
And this year is the first year since 1997 that we've had 3 teams from the same division make the divisional round. And that 97 3 teams was from the NFC Central, that old NFC Central you referenced. It was Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota in the championship, the divisional round that year. And Detroit was in the playoffs too. I'm sorry, Tom. Chicago did not make the playoffs in 1997.
You just be that way. I'm telling you. Do I kick you when Steelers are down?
But it's an old history.
Okay.
They're at the top of the draft board. Lot to look forward to. Number 1.
Yeah, we're number 1. We sure are.
All right, more picks. Brian, he says Chiefs, Eagles, Cincy, and San Francisco. So he's going for one upset, one road team winning this weekend.
I think the Bills win. By the way, I think the Cowboys win too. I think Brock Purdy has more problems this week, and I don't think the Cowboys let him off the table. They don't let him off the mat. He goes down for the 10 count this week.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to stick with San Francisco. This might just be personal. I don't want to say vendetta, but I just feel like every time I pick the Cowboys to win a big game, they lose. So I'm picking San Francisco.
The only reason why the Cowboys lose every time you pick them to win a big game is because
they can't win big games.
They lose. They're not capable of winning that game. Well, because they find a way to lose. And I think that's what people can't get past with this year's Cowboys team, is they've always found a way to lose in either the wild card or divisional round. No matter how strong you think that Cowboys team is, they always seem to find a way to lose.
So you think this year will be different?
I think this year will be different. I think this year they get to the NFC Championship.
Okay.
I'm not saying Super Bowl.
I thought last year was going to be different. So you know what? I'm off the Cowboys bandwagon.
Okay. It's going to be a tough game. I think if the 49ers had Garoppolo at quarterback, I think this is a different game. But again, it's just maybe it's my prejudice against a third string quarterback in the playoffs. All right, you won the wild card round, which is doable, I think, for a third string quarterback, but you're in the real playoffs now. Okay, this is where you're not facing a weak team. You don't have a team that has holes on defense, holes, in different parts of their offense. You face, these 8 teams. I don't know if I would say the Giants, but 7 of these 8 teams are quality. They're the best in the league. In my power rankings, in my statistical power rankings, except for the Giants was 17th. But every other team going down from 1 to 7 are now playing this weekend. So you got to look at that. It's tough.
I agree with Brian's latest comment. I just think San Francisco has too much. And I think your concern about Purdy is very legitimate. I think it's going to probably keep San Francisco from winning the whole thing. But they have so much at so many offensive positions. They have the best defense, and they have Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
That, I think, puts them over the top in a matchup against Dallas.
Bowling ball, 99 pounds. And we get to see Jerry all sad in his booth. It's great. That is one of the best things about seeing the Cowboys lose every year is seeing Jerry Jones and looking just completely frustrated and sad that his team couldn't do it again. His team fell again. Somehow his players, his handpicked players, could not get there. And that we get that every season, and it's fun. But
you think it's going to be different tomorrow?
I think it's going to be different tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, to end today's show, do you have some prize picks for our audience? Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app if you haven't already. And to get started, use our promo code ASU after you sign up. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So that's a great way to get started, and it supports our show. And we'll give you some recommendations here of what to do. I'm actually bowing out of the recommendations today because I have seen my account, the value in my account dwindle over the last few weeks. I don't think I'm in a position to recommend anybody to try and make some entries on Prize Picks right now.
Oh, it's a frustrating time.
I'm on a big cold streak, but I'm hoping Tom can help some other people win some money.
Here we go, folks. Here you go. Sign up for Prize Picks. Get your initial deposit made. We're going to start with Patrick Mahomes plus 315.5 yards against the Jaguars. Mahomes has never thrown for less than 255 yards in a playoff game. Okay. So he's going to get his yards. He's going to eat against Jacksonville. Threw 4 TDs against the Jags earlier in the season. They're going to have a tough time stopping him. I think the Jaguars are still going to play a tough game, but I do think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to cover. Mahomes is going to have a big game. I think the Cinderella team goes out. Well, I don't know if you call them the Cinderella team with the Giants in there, but the AFC Cinderella team goes out this year. Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown versus the Eagles. All right, all he's got to do is put the ball in the end zone, whether receiving or running. So I think Barkley, for the Giants to keep this close, Barkley's going to have to carry some of this offense. Not going to be all Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley, and he's playing like a monster this year. He's had a hell of a year. So I like that. I like A.J. Brown for the Eagles, over 75.5 receiving yards. A.J. Brown he's consistently hit that number this season. He's a major target in the Eagles offense, and I think he definitely gets that one. So there's your Prize Picks for today.
All right. And then, well, we kind of did it as we went, but what's your Nostradamus? You have, you got the Giants covering, right?
I have the Chiefs covering the 8.5 against Jacksonville. I have the Giants covering the 7.5 against the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to win, but I think the Giants can win. The only time you take a road dog
As if you think they're going to win.
Think they're going to win. Oh, boy, Dave, you've been listening to me.
I listen to you.
Yeah, you've been
yes,
listening.
I do.
I think the Giants can win. I don't think they will win. But I do think they keep this within the 7.5 point spread. Bills minus 5.5 against Cincinnati. I do not like those offensive line problems for the Bills. For the Bengals.
Yeah.
I think it takes away Joe Mixon out of the mix for them. And I think the Bills at home take this game. So guess what, Atlanta? You guys got an AFC Championship game coming down next week. So get ready. It's all going to be about Atlanta. And I got the Cowboys plus the 3.5. I think the road dog will win in this game against the San Francisco 49ers.
To end today's show, I want to answer our last question we got from Brian. What's Goddard's line? I think he's talking on Prize Picks. Goddard is set at 48.5 receiving yards. And I'm going to take a quick look at his receptions. 4.5 receptions. So
not a bad line.
Brian likes Goddard tonight.
Yeah, if you want to play Goddard, I would say go ahead. That's not a bad line. Those aren't bad numbers for him. And I think Zach has a good relationship with Goddard. Zach likes targeting Goddard. So, yeah, go ahead. Take it.
Tony, last comment.
Yeah.
Tony, bold proclamation as we end today's show. Buffalo will not win. So we'll see.
I will see you next week, Tony.
We will see. Tom's prediction of the Chargers losing eventually became correct.
Yes.
We will see if that's our producer Chris behind the
producer
scenes.
Chris, yes.
He is not rooting for a neutral site matchup next week. He is rooting for the Bengals. Sure.
I will see you next week, Tony.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next Saturday. Enjoy all the games.
Have a great week, everyone.